It seems like Canelo Alvarez is actually going to be fighting Jake Paul, and here's why. It was recently reported by Felipe Corral that in Las Vegas it was leaked about the possibility of Canelo Alvarez fighting Jake Paul in May. And in addition to that, Jake Paul has also announced that he has a big fight coming up soon. He stated that it's his biggest fight yet. And even more to that, part of Jake's team has announced saying that he's going to be busy on Cinco de Mayo. So it looks like it's possible some things are adding up here. And if we get Jake Paul versus Canelo Alvarez, this would be insane.
Honestly, I would not be surprised if Canelo takes this fight, especially lately. He's really been chasing the money fights in the money direction rather than the legacy fights and chasing greatness, at least as of late. Not fighting the David Benavidez's of the world, not moving up to light heavyweight and chasing titles against the likes of Artur Beterbiev and Dimitri Bivol. Instead, staying where he's comfortable at 168, defending against guys like Edgar Berlanga, Jaime Munguia. Seems like he's just in a comfortable spot right now and he's chasing the big money fights and the opportunities. And let's be honest, is Jake Paul not the biggest fight that Canelo could possibly have? I feel like that could be one of the biggest pay-per-views and the easiest fight out there. Obviously, Canelo is not going to lose to Jake Paul. I don't care that he's younger. I don't care that he's bigger. There's just levels to this game. Canelo's been doing this his whole life. He might be a little bit washed from his latest fights, but I don't think Jake Paul has a chance against Canelo, and I don't see why Canelo wouldn't want to get that payday.
Yeah, Jake Paul has no chance against Canelo, but you can't deny how big this fight would really be. And if you're in Jake Paul's position, you're coming off of this huge Netflix Mike Tyson fight. What's next? How can you one up this? How can you get bigger? There's no KSI fight in talks right now. We know that's not going to happen anytime soon. So you gotta go for Canelo Alvarez. He's been calling this for years. The only other guy he's called out as much as Canelo is Conor McGregor, and we know that's not going to happen. The UFC got him tight wrapped up. And as of late, whenever Canelo's been even asked about the question of fighting Jake Paul, in past years, he didn't entertain it at all, and towards more recently now, it seems like he's warmed up to that. He's even opened it. He said he possibly might go for it in the future, and what better time would be that? And we know Canelo Alvarez is only fighting Terence Crawford later in the year in around September, and this leaves perfect opportunity for Cinco de Mayo, a huge Mexican event for Jake Paul versus Canelo.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing Canelo wouldn't fight on Cinco de Mayo this year, because how many times in a row, how many years has Canelo always fought on Cinco de Mayo? For him to wait until September till he fights Crawford and not have a fight in between would be pretty weird to me. I feel like he always does go for that. So could this be the fight he takes? A Jake Paul fight, which would be an easy payday. Jake Paul doesn't really stand a chance in our opinion. If anything, I'd give him maybe, like a 5% chance,
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if you can give him a puncher's chance at this point, but
maybe just
you
a
never
puncher's
know.
chance, and that's it. That's literally about
He's
it.
a big boy.
But what do you think would be more likely? Canelo chasing a fight against Benavidez at this point, or he fights Jake Paul?
At this point, he hasn't seemed at all interested in fighting Benavidez.
Yeah.
There's no interest from his team, none from him. You know Benavidez definitely wants that. But Canelo has no interest in that. And why not kill some time in between until the Crawford fight? You know you're not going to get any risk. I mean, what do you think? There's probably no risk in him fighting Jake Paul.
In my opinion, there's no real risk here for Canelo. I mean, he's not going to lose to Jake Paul, so that's out of the question. It's just crazy that this could be a real possibility, and I feel like it will actually happen. I don't see it being too far-fetched to think that Canelo would take a fight against Jake Paul. He even said after the Mike Tyson fight that he would want to avenge Mike and get that one back, so maybe he's gonna do it. And I feel like if Jake Paul's saying he's topping that fight, he's saying it's bigger than his last fight, it's bigger than Mike Tyson. The only thing that could even match that a little bit, I don't even think the Canelo fight would be bigger. No way, because Mike Tyson is just an icon and a world-renowned name that is a household name, but it would be Canelo. That's the biggest fight out there that Jake could possibly have.
And if you're Jake Paul, you gotta be smiling from ear to ear. Hearing the news even, people leaking it, and even Canelo saying there's a possibility of that happen, you gotta be hella happy. Because he's been wanting stuff like this for a very long time. Now he's getting all the massive names in boxing. This would be a huge stepping stone for him too. If he's able to get a Canelo fight as well, a guy who's still active at the top of his level, even if he's a bit washed, he's still holding titles, he's still competing at the top of the top. This just opens way more possibilities for now, and who knows what opportunities he can get in the future if he's even able to show any sort of ability against Canelo.
Yeah, I feel like, if anything, this seems kind of like the end goal for Jake Paul. He's been talking about this fight for so long, and maybe he doesn't even want to take it this year, but eventually I do feel like this fight is going to happen, whether it's this year, whether it's next, whether it's a couple years down the line. This fight is going to happen for sure. I know Canelo is a 168 pounder, but he would come up to cruiserweight to fight Jake Paul if that's where they wanted to meet, or maybe come at a catch weight, maybe like 190 or something like that. Canelo would want Jake to come down to, but there's no way this fight is out of the picture, which is pretty bizarre to say. And I feel like for Jake Paul, there is a lot of risk here because this kind of felt like the end goal and something he's been building up to so long. So after this, where do you go? Where do you go if you lose? Well, when you lose, it's Canelo.
Yeah, I think for Jake, I mean, for him, he'd be able to play this off really good, to be honest. He already lost to Tommy Fury, so it's not like he's undefeated anymore. And for him to lose to Canelo, everyone's going to expect him to lose anyways. So I don't really think that's going to drop his stock at all. If anything, like I was saying, if he's able to show ability, I think that would be the biggest win for him. As even though people don't want to give him respect for any fight, especially that Mike Tyson fight, granted, because Mike Tyson is in his late 50s, but for Canelo, people are still going to say stuff, people are still going to make excuses, and they're going to laugh at him if he loses. But I'm sure at some point there's got to be some understanding there if he's able to show some, even a few shots of success against Canelo Alvarez, and his stock, his star reputation won't diminish. People have already seen him lost, and that's not going to change by another loss to Canelo Alvarez if it didn't change to Tommy Fury. So he's in a good position no matter what. But what do you think?
Yeah, I do agree because Jake Paul did come from the influencer side. It's not like he built his record off being this undefeated killer of a, amazing boxer. That's not why people tune in. It's not why people watch him. It's for the entertainment. At the end of the day, people want to see the spectacle, the freak show, the circus, whatever you want to call it. People want to see what the Jake Paul product is, and maybe that experiment has been wearing off as times went on and people have become a little bit less interested. But the Mike Tyson fight was the biggest fight of the last decade, reportedly, with like 60 million people watching. Granted, it wasn't a pay-per-view, so that's a big reason as to why it did so well. But you can't deny Jake Paul is one of the biggest names right now in boxing, as bizarre as it is to say. So I feel like even with a loss to Canelo, maybe he could try to build back for a rematch a couple years down the line when Canelo's a bit older, a little bit more washed, and who knows what could happen at this point.
But I would be kind of curious to see what opponent Jake Paul would face after Canelo. I mean, the guy's kind of been building and building in the star power of his fights, going from Mike Tyson to Canelo Alvarez. Like, how do you really beat that at that point? And aren't people in the audience not really care that much if you go from Canelo Alvarez to a sort of no-name and not as big of a fighter? It would be kind of tough for Jake Paul to one-up that. Maybe the only possibility would be KSI fight, as everyone, the whole world's been waiting to see that happen. I don't know if that's even ever going to happen. But where does Jake Paul really go from here, opponent-wise? It's hard to say.
Yeah, I feel like if he were to lose to Canelo, I feel like maybe you try to rebuild and avenge your other loss to maybe Tommy Fury or something like that, because he never got that one back, and people have kind of just let that go, and Jake hasn't had to get that one back, so maybe he goes in that direction. As you said, the KSI fight, it seems like they're interested in doing that after whatever they have planned here. But whether it's on Cinco de Mayo, whether it's in the future, it seems like Canelo versus Jake Paul is a very real possibility. But let us know your thoughts in the comments down below on this possible fight, Jake Paul versus Canelo, which we think is going to happen inevitably. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out the video on screen for more Punch Talk videos.